as I said, there's a lot of people talking about the importance of customer experience, the importance of employee experience. I think the premise that I'm going with here is that we can all agree that having a great customer experience is a great thing. So, I think there's a lot of books written about that, a lot of articles written about that. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on why that's important. I think we're gonna start with the assumption that, as Anna was saying, one of the key differentiators of brands today is the experience that they provide their customers. So we're gonna just build on that and really talk more about how do we start measuring and doing things in a way that allows us to continue to make investments in customer experience. The fundamental thing here, again, just like the premise that I just talked about, is also the consumer and the customer aspect of this. Customers aren't waking up in the morning, for instance, I don't wake up in the morning wondering how Starbucks is doing and, are they feeling okay or not. I wake up in the morning and I just need some coffee. I'm tired. I need caffeine. They make a good cup of coffee from my perspective. It's easy to get. There's an app, all of those types of things. So in that customer experience and that customer relationship, I'm not looking for a brand to engage. I'm looking to solve a challenge. In this case, a very simple one of I just need to be more awake. It could be something much more important and dire in the healthcare arena. It could be a longer term thing. It could be a longer term B2B relationship. Whatever that is, brands just have to understand that they're there to solve real challenges. And again, regardless of how big or how small they are, their job is not to simply engage. When you do engage a customer, that's a great thing. There's measurements for that. It's a wonderful thing to be able to keep people engaged. But if you can't think in terms of solving a real challenge, you're not going to have a longer term relationship. So, we look at this traditional marketing funnel, and while the sales process can be thought of in this very linear way, what it actually looks like in reality is something a lot more convoluted. And not only, the same steps are still technically there, but think about the buyer behaviors of someone could be walking in a store on their mobile device, comparing prices to, what's on the shelf to what's online, and then leave the store altogether, go home and buy it online on Amazon. And all of that is done across, an in-store experience, a mobile experience, and a desktop experience. And brands need to understand this as well. It's not, if only it were this simple of someone goes from one step to another, all on the same channel, all on the same device. Instead, we're talking about tracking across devices, across experiences, word of mouth, all sorts of interactions happening. And so not only was it difficult to track things when it was thought of as a much more linear process, it's become, to some organizations, it feels almost impossible to track when it becomes, so many steps in the process, so many different ways of interacting. It's not impossible, but it's, it might feel that way to many organizations. And so, to define customer experience, it's not just one of these things. It's all of these things and much more. It's not just the usability of your website. It's not just what happens when someone calls your customer service line. It's not your CSAT or your NPS scores. It includes those things by all means, but customer experience is every interaction that someone has with an organization, and more specifically, it's their feelings and their sentiments about those experiences altogether. So that's where it's also challenging to measure customer experience at a single point in a relationship or an interaction, because it's really all of the above. It's how did they feel throughout that process, and what are the lasting impressions they're going to have. So return on experience is the return on investment when you make those investments in customer experience. So again, I don't think there's a single organization out there that is going to say, the customer isn't important, or we shouldn't think about customer experience. But what return on experience is when you really make that investment, what are the returns that you're getting on it? So why is return on experience so important? I'll go through a few points here. So as I said, there isn't an organization out there, maybe there is, but I highly doubt it, that isn't going to say that they love their customers. But how many are actually willing to put investments in making a better experience over short-term goals, profitability, other types of things like that? I think the same thing can be said about employee experience. We hear the stories about the organizations that actually do this, and there's several out there, but it's not all of the organizations out there. There's several that really stand out and have done that, have taken some risk actually in making investments in either their employee experience or customer experience, and or both, in order to do that. And the reasons why we hear about some of these organizations so much, I'll get to some of them in a minute, but is because they really do that. They put their money where their mouth is. They not only say they love their customer, but they make investments in it. And to go a step further, they wouldn't keep making those investments if they weren't able to justify the cost. And so we'll see some ways to look at that as well. The other thing to why return on experience is so important is that measuring this and making these investments, it helps the customer. And when we help the customer, it's kind of an obvious thing that I'm saying here, but when we help the customer, it helps the company. We have longer term relationships. We have customers that buy more, they buy more often, they refer others more often. And so when we start to measure this return on experience, we start seeing, okay, the customer experience not only is improving based on those initial investments that we make, but also it continues to improve, because it's a fairly simple thing to say. If I invest $1 into something and I get $2 out, why wouldn't I invest $4 and get $8 out? It becomes much more easy versus saying, you know what, we should really treat our customers better, but I don't really know how it's helping the bottom line. I just kind of feel like it might. That's not a great argument when we have that. We might know we're right, and we might know that in the long term it's going to translate into better results. But if we're able to measure more quickly and easily and justify this, we're going to have happier customers as well. Return on experience helps the company as well. So measuring this, it allows us to have a more holistic approach across the organization, because as we'll see, it's not just one person's job to make customer experience great. You may have a chief experience officer in your organization. You may have a CX team even, but it's not a single person's role within the organization. It's really a combination of a lot of people working across a lot of different disciplines to do that. And by doing this, it really helps an organization have what I refer to as a customer-centric culture. When people are aligned around a customer-centric culture, it means they're also aligned around a single goal. And I think that's also really important for the employees within a company to all be aligned around something that is positive and good, and again gives a great return to the organization.